Welcome back. My name is Neil Charran, and this is the Gideon Star Chronicler. This is my full spoiler review of The Rise of Skywalker. I was able to see it a second time, and I can tell you just up front, I went from like to liked it a lot. So of the Disney sequels, I loved The Force Awakens. When I say love, I can actually rewatch it quite a number of times. The Last Jedi, unfortunately, I hate. I'll put a link below to Roz Weston's from ET's Canada's review of it. He basically has my heart and soul on that. I'll also put a link to his review of Rise of Skywalker because he also can't help but bring back The Last Jedi, and I can't either. So he is my support so that I know that I'm not crazy and not the only one in this, that I can't quite shake The Last Jedi. I'm trying to move from hate to loathe. I define loathe as more of a softer thing than hate. Hate's a little bit more strong, aggressive, active, a little bit more emotional. Loathe is more like a kind of a disgust. I'm more disgusted by The Last Jedi. And I feel like that's progress to go from hate to loathe. But The Last Jedi for me is highly unwatchable. And I remember distinctly coming out of the theater, processing it, and thinking to myself, very strange, I didn't like it. When I saw it a second time, I knew I didn't like it. And then when I tried to watch it a third time, that's when, unfortunately, hate came in. And I kind of want to let that go because I love Star Wars. I really do. And I'm really hoping through time, The Last Jedi will grow with me. And I think it actually might, because of The Rise of Skywalker. And I know a lot of people have commented that The Rise of Skywalker kind of is throwing shade at The Last Jedi. And I actually, upon the second watch, I don't think it is. I actually think it's trying to unify, really is trying to unify all of Star Wars, including The Last Jedi. And it's trying to bring all the story threads together. As I mentioned in my prior review, they made this the Palpatine story, and it actually ends up working quite well. The fact that Palpatine is the bad guy. In fact, I can tell you now, I felt, even though it's still not quite described as to how he came back, they use the throwaway line from Revenge of the Sith. The dark side is a pathway to many abilities some would consider unnatural. Right? They use that line to explain his coming back. Technically, it's enough. I do want a little bit more, but technically it's enough for this story's purpose. And it makes you also go, yeah, he's the one pulling the strings, and it's basically the main bad guy in the prequels. He's the main bad guy and the one pulling the strings in the original trilogy, and he's the main bad guy and the one pulling the strings in the sequels, and it makes sense altogether. And I think that if you can just sort of accept that part, that Palpatine is basically your main bad guy throughout and your main source of conflict for all your characters, knowing and unknowing, you really will enjoy it. So I've moved from actually like The Rise of Skywalker to like it a lot. Of the Disney sequels, Force Awakens is still my favorite. I personally love it, and I do love the fact that it is basically A New Hope with new characters, but there are different arcs, and that's the most important thing. So, for example, in Force Awakens, we get the Stormtrooper that's able to break his training to join the good guys. That's new, that's interesting, and I wanted more of that. Unfortunately, Last Jedi decided to go a different direction, but then it was brought back in Rise of Skywalker. And these are important things to note because that is actually a fascinating question, which is if you have a main protagonist, and what if your audience likes the secondary one more and wants to know more about it? That being said, I love Rey now. Rise of Skywalker actually made me love Rey. All of these actors, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, all of them are fantastic actors, and you give them enough meat, and they can really chew up a scene like I haven't seen. I hope they have long, wonderful careers. Oscar Isaacs, of course, is always wonderful, but the two sort of new actors that we were introduced, they're absolutely fantastic, and I hope they have a long and wonderful career. I have quite a few notes, and because I wanted to make sure not to miss anything. In terms of the review, because walking in a second time, I also listened to other reviews, read other reviews online and different things. One of the big things was not understanding how Han came back to Kylo Ren. I'm going to kind of be jumping all over the place. I apologize for that. But up front, I liked The Rise of Skywalker a lot. Recommend that you see it. And so we'll talk about the little nuances of it, and then go into a little bit about storytelling. But Han's return is something that was very difficult for the audience. We loved it. We loved seeing him. But it was something very difficult for the audience to digest. It's now been suggested afterwards that Leia actually manifested Han. And that was actually fascinating to me. So I went to see if there were any clues in that in the movie, or paid attention to that scene to see if there were any clues in that movie. And there are. And if you think about Luke as a hologram or a force projection on Crate in The Last Jedi, Leia did that with Han. Han is a force projection manifested by Leia to come to Kylo in this moment. Now, one of the neat tricks that this does is because I personally thought Kylo Ren could not be redeemed because he murdered his dad, and his dad happens to be Han Solo, who I adore. In this instance, Han Solo is now coming to you and saying he can be redeemed. He's saying it to the audience, but he's also saying it to his son. And it works perfectly as this two-pronged thing. Because after that point, I did want to see Ben Solo. I did want to see Kylo Ren redeemed. I did want Rey to take his hand. And I was, actually after that moment, I was also okay. I was never a Reylo fan at all. At all. But after that, I didn't mind if they chose to go romantic with that. And that was all accomplished in that one scene. Kudos to the filmmakers, to J.J. Abrams, and anyone else involved in writing that. And thank you very much, Harrison Ford, for basically helping save Star Wars. And in Carrie Fisher's absence, God rest her soul, I think you filled in wonderfully as the one that we needed to see to help fulfill Ben Solo turning around. As I watched scene by scene, I actually feel like JJ actually went out of his way to be respectful to The Last Jedi. So you have the Holdo maneuver, which I'll put a link description below, which technically is the hardest thing to swallow from new Star Wars. JJ has now let it be something that's accepted, except that it's just very difficult to do, which is why it's never been done before. It's a huge risk, 1 in a million kind of thing, like shooting proton torpedoes into the shaft of the Death Star. Very few people can do it. There is a suggestion that Holdo was force sensitive. Wish that was in the movie. Not that we should be able to explain everything through the Force, but it does help. I think foreshadowing was used very well in The Rise of Skywalker. I think that, for example, Rey's lightning, when she was trying to save Chewbacca, we'll talk about the almost deaths later, but when she tried to save Chewbacca, I felt that Rey's lightning was also foreshadow for Palpatine's lightning at the end, because they affect ships, and that's what they were sort of saying. Rey at this sort of low-level dark side use could basically blow up a ship. Someone like Palpatine at a higher level could affect just the good guy's fleet, not his own fleet, and that was part of that foreshadowing, also accomplishing the fact that Rey has to deal with the dark side within her as well. So there's a lot of that happening. The movie moves quite fast, but in these moments, you're getting 3-4 different meanings for different actions and that's probably also why it's a little bit more difficult to comprehend in the moment. I mean, you're just also trying to enjoy it, but it's very difficult to process because it's not just the foreshadowing for Rey, it's a foreshadowing for Palpatine, but it's not just a foreshadowing for Palpatine, it's a foreshadowing for Rey's conflict. And it's not just a foreshadowing for Rey's conflict, it lets you know that she also is self-aware of Force lightning and how it can be used at the end to destroy the Emperor and so on and so forth. There's all these layers to this one moment, and we're processing it all. And that's why it's kind of a difficult thing for us to take in. For me, the best parts of the movie are Rey and Kylo, but I love the fact that Finn is Force sensitive, and I loved that in the scene with the worm, the sandworm, she hands Finn the lightsaber, but it's still the lightsaber's still lit, and when Rey's like, "I'm going to go do this thing," she gives it to Finn to hold, as if he can use it and wield it, and I love that. I wish there was a lightsaber scene with Finn again, especially now that we know that he's Force sensitive. He didn't necessarily have to battle someone as Force sensitive. Maybe he could have fought some of the Knights of Ren, but I would have loved to have seen that. I love that. Another way that I can tell you that there was respect to The Last Jedi, Lando technically also took himself out of the fight. He was gallivanting around the galaxy, helping Luke with the Jedi Order, basically. And they were going on different missions together. And kind of when Luke took himself out of it, Lando took himself out of it. And I feel like that pays a lot of respect to The Last Jedi and the decisions in terms of exile Last Jedi. Lando, who is a hero, and we last left him as a hero, also was afflicted by this darkness that came from the First Order, and perhaps helped us kind of understand Luke a little bit more in terms of if he also could be affected and disaffected by what was going on, almost as if to say everything that I did was for naught. You know, I fought the Emperor, but I fought the Empire for what? Another one just rose in its place. You know, I have a lot to think about. We could also see that in Luke, and I thought that was wonderful. Leaving this movie, I actually didn't feel like it was. So there was a lot of commentary that it should have been 2 movies or split into 2. I actually felt like the reason why you feel that way is that because it's actually like 4 movies or maybe a trilogy on its own. Maybe that's a fair assessment. It was a trilogy on its own, and that there was the beginning, middle, and end all happened in this movie, and part of this movie should have been set up in The Last Jedi, and then that basically is the only issue I can tell you with The Rise of Skywalker, which is to say, this movie had a lot to establish before it could move to telling its story, and because it had a lot to establish, the movie has to move at a lightning pace, and there's no time to really take a breather because there's so much to accomplish in a short time. And my understanding is also it was edited from a larger cut version, which I hope. I actually hope I don't want to see deleted scenes from the Blu-ray. I actually would love for them to give me a longer version on the Blu-ray. And if they actually do a 3-hour cut, or 3-hour 1-minute cut of the movie, I would see it in theaters again. I would go a third time for that. If there was a 3-hour cut of this movie, I would go back in theaters and see it a third time, 100%. Disney could take my money right now. There were a bunch of emotional moments. I felt a lot of emotion the first time I watched it, and I felt those same emotions the second time. In particular, I tear up when Chewie howls at the death of Leia. It knocks me down every single time. I'm actually feeling something right now just talking about it. It is such a well done, powerful scene, and that's something in terms of storytelling. A lot of times in storytelling, we, the audience, the readers, the audience that you're storytelling to, are not affected by a person's death. We're affected by the reaction of the people still alive to that person's death. That is where that power comes from. And so having Chewie just absolutely lose it with Leia and beat the ground and just fall down and all these things, I'm feeling something right now. It really got me. And I think that that's important too. That emotion that was put forward is fantastic. I love that C-3PO mentions the Old Republic and regards his ability to speak the Sith language. I love that the theme in this movie is they win by making you think you're alone. And they really play that up all the way to the end of the movie when it looks like they're going to lose, and then Lando shows up. And many people call it an endgame callback. Let it be. I'm fine with it. I'm 100% fine with it. Let it be on your... It's an on your left moment. Let that be a thing forever. Figure out a way in storytelling forever to create an on your left moment. We want it all the time. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it 1,000 times more. We want stories to be retold to us anytime we get that chance. We want it. And it's not just remakes or rehashes. Thematically, we want on your left. The feeling that it gets, who wouldn't want that feeling every single time? We want that. We want the build up to it, and we want it. So never be afraid to try to create an on your left moment. In fact, please try to. I would love you so much for that. So there was also a Sith character called Hochi that was introduced, or a Sith follower called Hochi that was introduced that I thought was pretty interesting. So the blade that they found is actually not an ancient Sith blade, but one that he made, probably based off ancient Sith blades, to be used to find the Sith Wayfinder, which is also what we know to be a Sith holocron, and why they chose Wayfinder over holocron, I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of weird choices, just small ancillary things that I never quite understood. For instance, in Force Awakens, C-3PO has a red arm. That's never quite explained. I believe there are books that do, but the choices in movies seem to be something to do with Disney. Like, we want to be able to sell merchandise, so let's create a C-3PO with a red arm so we can sell it. Or maybe it has to do with contracts. So it gets there's a little bit of an interference with storytelling in the Disney sequels that have to be addressed going forward. Storytelling should be paramount to everything else, to all considerations, even monetary. It really should be. Monetary will flow from it. Merchandising will flow from it. If people like to love what you're giving them, they'll want to live in it as long as they can, and they'll buy merchandise. People want Baby Yodas because they want to live in it quite a lot longer than when the season of Mandalorian ends. We want to go on our own adventures. We want to have the feelings and shared experiences. We'll buy Baby Yoda t-shirts so that we can meet other people with Baby Yoda t-shirts. Like, there's more to it than we ever will realize, but storytelling in and of itself is paramount to all things, and then all other things will flow from it. And I hope Disney learns from this experience. I hope that Disney really understands. For example, and this goes into it, I really have felt between Last Jedi and, to a certain degree, this movie, that there was really a missed opportunity with Finn. Finn is my favorite character in the Disney sequel. I do love Rey now, and Daisy Ridley. So that's another thing we need to discuss, just in general. You have to separate your actor from the character they're playing. They have to. There is no place for anything that came with the vitriol that I understand that we all, or many of us, didn't like The Last Jedi. The actors don't deserve that. They're doing their jobs, and they did them very well given what they were given. So we should actually be applauding them, and they should be heroes of ours for trying to save Star Wars from what otherwise could have been a really, really bad turn and could have actually ended something that we all love sooner than we were ready to let go of. So we should really be hailing them as heroes. So I'm going to tell you right now, Daisy Ridley is a phenomenal actress, and the way she played Rey was phenomenal. Rey as the character is not my favorite character. It's Finn. It really is Finn, and I want more of him. I would love it if they could convince John Boyega to come back and show us him becoming a Jedi. He started to do the John Boyega, the actor, in facial expressions, started to play up the Force sensitivity in a way that was remarkable to me. That he could telegraph to the audience thoughts and feelings that he was thinking. And that also is very reminiscent to me of Mark Hamill. And a lot of Return of the Jedi, a lot of that is in Mark Hamill's face. Stuff like, oh yeah, I've seen this. Oh yeah, I know this. Oh yeah, okay, that's what I expected to happen. Or, that sounds about right. Or the Force showed me this. There was a lot of that going on without saying words at all. And it was just absolutely remarkable. When he's in Jabba's palace and Jabba's condemning him to the Sarlacc pit, Mark Hamill's just like, yep, that's right. That's what I thought was going to happen. And so I know what to do next. Or with the Ewoks, it's like, no, Han, Chewie, give him your bowcaster. Like Han, it'll be all right. And obviously they love and trust Luke, and they did it apprehensively, but they did do it. But there was something else. It looks like there's something else. And they let the Ewoks say, oh, there's Leia. That's what it was. That's what I was feeling. And you could see it all in Mark Hamill's acting and very much in his facial expressions. Darth Vader ignites the lightsaber behind him. And you see Mark Hamill for a second get a little concerned. Luke getting a little concerned. But then realizing, no, his father does love him, that there's a conflict. John Boyega was channeling all of that and more. And I actually thought, so much so that at the very end, I thought he was going to do something with the Force, on the ship at the very end. I don't know what, telekinesis, Force push, just something. But I really thought, or, block a blaster bolt with his hand. I really thought that was a setup that was being made throughout the movies, particularly in John Boyega's acting, that didn't have quite the payoff I thought, but I was still very satisfied with it. But that was actually quite remarkable. There is a joke, which probably turned into a meme if it hasn't already, about Sidious not learning the lesson about Force lightning. I paid attention to this in this moment when Rey was facing him. He actually does stop long before she kills him. So he realizes that she's throwing the lightning back on him, and he stops. But apparently, by using both sabers, she's able to collect all of that energy, and she still has it contained in the sabers through the Force, and is able to throw it back on him, and that basically is what takes him out Indiana Jones style, Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark style. And there's quite a few of these things. So like the throne is very reminiscent of Game of Thrones. I mentioned an Avengers Endgame moment. Actually two technically. I am the Sith, I am the Jedi, I am Iron Man, I am inevitable. There's also seems to be a slight nod to Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark with the melting face of Palpatine. So, and again, I'm telling you it's okay because I enjoyed it. A lot of the audience enjoyed it. Some of them might not realize that they've seen it before or seen it in this context, but it's okay. If you want to take bits and pieces of all the movies that we love to make a whole new movie, please do so. The Matrix is the hero's journey, just told way differently. Harry Potter is the hero's journey. Again, just told way differently. But there's still basically like a magic happening. There's still basically like, crossing thresholds and all these different things. We love it. We love it. Give us more. Give us more. Give us the storytelling like that all the time. We will pay for it. We will love you for it. Everything and all the things that you could think of. So I was fine with that. It appears using the... So I guess we've seen it with Dooku and Obi-Wan Kenobi in Attack of the Clones, where Obi-Wan was able to take the Force lightning into his saber, where he necessarily wouldn't be able to, say, absorb and dissipate the Force lightning. He was able to do it into a saber. We saw Mace Windu do it in Revenge of the Sith. So I think it's supposed to be sort of shown to us that this Force lightning is supposed to be immeasurably, immensely more powerful. Obviously, it's able to knock out ships. So a single lightsaber is not able to hold, contain, or do the trick. But two lightsabers can contain or hold that much energy. And then I think Rey, through the Force, was doing things to sort of not just dissipate, but to absorb it, to hold it, to contain it, to build it up, to throw it back. And I hate to say it again, perhaps it's a callback to the original Avengers movie where Thor uses lightning on Iron Man, and Iron Man's suit is now got energy up 400% or something like that. Rey's got energy up 400% and is able to throw it back at Palpatine. But he did stop well before she threw it back at him. So he technically understood what was happening and stopped himself, but again, not knowing. And this goes to Palpatine's weakness, whether it's the Ewoks. It was said directly in Return of the Jedi, his overconfidence is his weakness. It always has been. His overconfidence has always been his weakness. And I believe he was overconfident or underestimated, which could be another weakness, Rey's ability to harm him. And, that's basically what his end was. As far as it being a satisfying ending, I technically wish there was more. And there was one thing that sort of bothers me, and it's where's Luke's green lightsaber? I actually like the design of Leia's lightsaber. It reminded me of Luke's green lightsaber. It's got like more of a copper finish, but it has the way the hilt and the aperture set along sort of a narrow neck. Reminds me very much of Luke's lightsaber. And then I realized, where's Luke's green lightsaber? I missed that, and I actually wish Finn maybe could have wielded it or something like that. But, that was just sort of one little tidbit that brought it to the forefront, that Leia's lightsaber was very reminiscent of Luke's, and then it made me reminded me of, like, where's Luke's green lightsaber? Because he's got to have that someplace, right? Or are they saying that he lost it in the temple? I'm not sure, but I hope they do. When Kylo destroyed the temple, when in Last Jedi, did he lose it there and never recovered it? I'm not sure, but I'd like to see it again. And I hope it shows up in sequels. So one wonderful thing that struck me that ended up being a callback was in The Force Awakens, Rey was playing with an X-Wing pilot's helmet. And in the movie, she has an X-Wing. She's wearing the helmet the same way, and she's piloting an X-Wing to get to Exegol. And I thought that was a wonderful callback, maybe even some foreshadowing from the first movie to the third, which is it's part of the whole Chekhov's gun thing. Just to remind you, Chekhov's gun basically says if there's a gun and you basically highlight that gun in Act 1, it needs to go off in Act 2 or 3. Otherwise, there's no purpose to the gun and it shouldn't be in the story. So they highlight Rey playing with an X-Wing pilot's helmet. I think they also have an X-Wing pilot's doll that she she might have played or had when she was a little girl. And that thing never really went anywhere. We all thought in Last Jedi that Luke would lift his X-wing out of the water. He did that in Rise of Skywalker. Again, I think something that's paying homage to Last Jedi, not disrespecting it in any way. And I really do believe JJ went out of his way not to disrespect The Last Jedi, and in fact to make it so that it was more palatable to us. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm probably going to try to watch The Last Jedi again, as much as I hate it. And I will let you know in a later video how I felt about it. And it probably will prompt me to finally do the Last Jedi review that I've been promising you guys. I have been very hesitant to do it because I hate to hate things. I hate to nitpick. I hate to I hate the fact that I hate something about Star Wars. So I think I've been very hesitant to do this review, but it probably will prompt me to do it. And more importantly, air my feelings, explain it to you why. But the final part is I always want not just to review things, but to bring it back to storytelling and add value to you. It's wonderful for me to say why I like this movie. It's wonderful for me to review it and to tell you why I like it and all my thoughts and feelings. But I also want to bring it back to storytelling because I do believe that adds value to you. And that's the most important thing to me. So the other thing that I noticed was Rey. They lingered on Rey staring at the children at the festival. And the way Daisy Ridley played it, in my opinion, and what we saw in Rey's face was not just that she liked children or loved children or thought that they were cute or that it was beautiful, but there was sort of like a one day I'm going to have a family too. And there was actually something, I forgot to mention in my prior review, when Kylo healed Rey and touched her stomach, I thought it was entirely possible that she could be pregnant. And I found a video from Den of Nerds that I'll put in the description below that not only makes me believe that she could possibly be pregnant, but that she has twins and that they're Skywalker twins. It's beautiful. I love his theory. I have to share. I'll share it with you. But the theory basically goes that at the very end, with the twin sons apart, the twin sons are together, her bearing the two lightsabers, the whole symbolism behind it, not just coming full circle for Rey, but that she actually might be pregnant with Kylo Ren's twins. I actually technically hope that this is true. I think that would actually be a wonderful thing, again, to continue the Skywalker saga, and we can catch up with them in 20 years and see, or catch up with them in 10 years, and they're 20. But the time lapse in the movie is 20 years, so that we see the next generation and what they have to deal with, and I think it would be a wonderful story. So I want to, and this is a point I want to bring about storytelling. So one of the wonderful things about the original Star Wars is that basically the movie was kind of complete with a beginning, middle, and end, except Darth Vader escapes. Except the Empire is still out there. Except we're left with a wonderful celebration and together, but there's still more adventure to happen, and we know that. And if, God forbid, we never got Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, for some reason, the movie only caught on later, the way, say, the Rocky Horror Picture Show caught on later, or some of these other, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy caught on later, and then sort of fans demanded that, hey, this should be turned into a movie too. Something similar to that with Star Wars. We would still be able to live adventures if we chose to. We could still have role-playing games. We could still have schoolyard adventures. There was still a lot to be done. And that's something in terms of storytelling that you always want to do. You don't want to completely close off your story. You want us to think, feel, believe that your characters live on. That at the end of the story that you've told us, that there's more to their life. So it's important that the story breathes on its own too, but that it's really nice that your audience carries with it afterwards. So something like RoboCop, after everything was fulfilled and the movie ends with "My name is Murphy," spoilers for RoboCop, basically you get a sense that he's going to, you don't know if he's going to go back to his family, you don't know what, but you get a sense that there's more story there, but there's more of life there. And even if we just got this one story and never got another story, we know that they would, it would move on. Independence Day technically, actually the Terminator is probably perfect, because Terminator and Terminator 2 were complete stories, and that's it. You don't, which is why they're having such difficulty with the franchise. The stories are complete. There's really no more to go with it except to believe in your imagination that John Connor grows up. And in fact, in the novelization of Terminator 2, John Connor grows up to be a politician and world leader. And his mother is alive and so very proud of him. And this is a wonderful, wonderful ending. And it's something that we could conceive of in a sequel, possibly, to see that John Connor is now maybe in charge to make sure that Skynet never happens. And then there's an opposing force, an opposing politician who's in the pocket of, say, the military, the military-industrial complex or something like that. Weapons manufacturers who want to see something like a Skynet turned on because it means a lot of money for them or something. I mean, but what I'm saying is that these movies continue to live, breathe, and grow within our own imaginations. This is where fan fiction comes in. So the stories never die within us, and that is extraordinarily important. So Rise of Skywalker has an end. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and the total end for me is actually quite satisfactory. But there's still, in our imaginations, more story to tell, and that is wonderful. That's what you want. You want your characters to be so well developed that I believe that, things continue on for them. And that, when you catch us up with the next story, we're just catching up. But they've lived 10 years full life. So maybe Rey has kids, she marries Finn, has more kids with Finn, and they have a large family. And one of the dark secrets is that the two twins know that they believe that their father's Finn, and don't know that their father's Kylo Ren or their dark past. And that's one of the secrets that they decide to keep from them. Another secret is that Rey's a Palpatine is being kept from them. Maybe Finn knows, but not Poe or anybody else. And that creates a wrinkle in Poe and Finn's relationship that Finn would never confide in Poe. And Finn could say something like, "Oh, it's not my story to tell. It's Rey's secret, not mine. If it was my secret, I would have told you. You know everything about me. But it's not fair for me to tell Rey and stuff that you've confided in me any more than it's fair for me to tell you stuff that she's they could completely do that, and there's more character development there. So there's so many wonderful things that you can do with this, and that is another thing that I appreciate and makes me like The Rise of Skywalker a lot. Does it have flaws? Yes. Would it be better had The Last Jedi set up a lot of the things? Probably, but it's hard to say. And so I can only take what's given to me in a self-contained way, no matter how many ways you want to nitpick it or rip it apart, or certain things that make sense or certain things are rushed. In a general sense, I really liked it. I recommend it. And it is actually good storytelling. There's a lot of good foreshadowing. In terms of emotional moments, there are a lot of almost deaths that I'm not sure what the thoughts were behind it. The particular one with Chewie dying was very heart-rendering until the next scene later he's alive. C-3PO, they mentioned the backup they mentioned backup quite quickly, so you're kind of okay with the fact that C-3PO probably will be back. But then you had all the people from Pasana, Zori Bliss, um, that we thought were dead because they Death Starred it basically, but then it turns out that they were able to get off the planet and be alive. And so these, Babu Frick. I mean, Babu Frick was a well-liked character, well introduced, and it was actually quite sad to think that he perished. But then no, he's fine, he's alive, and you're just like, oh, okay. So I mean, it is Star Wars, and this goes to another video that I mentioned before about how maybe Game of Thrones has ruined storytelling, and the ultimate answer is it hasn't ruined it, but it definitely has affected storytelling, and that we sort of now want some of these deaths that affect us to happen, and then when we don't happen, we're actually kind of disappointed with them. So I love the fact that Chewbacca's alive, but yeah, in the moment it was weird because it felt like a heart pulling moment. You're pulling on my heart, tugging on the strings of it, and then you kind of give it back to me, and it's like, I'm not sure how I feel about that, and that's where that becomes an interesting thing. Whereas in Game of Thrones, Chewbacca would be dead. Chewbacca would be dead, and Rey would probably want to kill herself because she was the reason why, and all she wanted to do was be a good person. So these are and this could have made it for strong character arcs. Two things: had no time for it in the movie, and it's also Star Wars. It's not Game of Thrones. So, the idea is that although we adults truly do love it, it is still made for kids, and so you have to make it so that the kids can dream and love and grow into adults like the way we have with these movies. So maybe you kill Chewbacca in a different story, or you don't do it at all, but you make your decisions on the darkness is, especially since at the end they kill Kylo Ren. He's redeemed and he dies, and that thematically follows with Star Wars. I hope they find they don't. I hope they don't find that to be part of the Star Wars story structure. You don't always have to have characters that are redeemed from the dark side that then have to die to be fully considered good. We can let them live. I would love to see a Kylo Ren who tries to make the universe better after all the horrors that he's done. I would love to see a dark side character who became good, who now struggles because nobody trusts him or her. No one believes him or her, think they're always going to fall back to the dark side, and really struggle with that to make the world better. But we know as an audience that they're actually good people they were once bad people, and now they're good people trying to spend the rest of their life trying to make amends for everything they've done. And that's, I hope that becomes more Star Wars than anything else. So there was a comment about Kelly Marie Tran being underused. There is a belief that there's about 10 to 15 minutes of footage that was cut out, and unfortunately a lot of those scenes she was in. Regardless, the character Rose Tico was used very, very well in this movie. So you had a choice. You could include her with the trio or just do the trio. I appreciate that they just did the trio plus Chewbacca. So you're technically adding a fifth person. But her, especially since we know her from The Last Jedi, her on the ground, I do feel like there should have been a few more scenes with her. Just her on the ground along with Carrie Fisher's daughter, who's I think her character is Lieutenant Connix. Them on the ground with Dominic Moynihan. I apologize if I'm not getting that name right. He was Hobbit in Lord of the Rings trilogy. These people on the ground serve a purpose for us. They ground us, basically. They let us see things from a layman's perspective, non-Jedi, ordinary people who are trying to do better in the galaxy. And I actually do appreciate that they left Rose there so that we could always check back in there and see the progress and see the sacrifices that they're making. So I thought that was actually well done. Representation is actually extraordinarily important. I do actually appreciate that they introduced a gay couple into the movie. I do appreciate, obviously, John Boyega being a black person, Asians now. I do appreciate all the representation that they're putting into the films, and I think that they should continue with that. And don't worry about who gets the spotlight or who doesn't right now. That'll develop in time. I do believe Rose should get her own show, and I do believe Rose should be involved in another movie. So I hope that they make that happen. And I hope her character is by far more developed. And I hope she turns into a strong leader. And I hope they show that to us and make us feel that as well. But these are all the hopes and promises of things to come. So again, like I'm saying, the story is complete, but that doesn't mean that we can't live and dream on about these characters. And I do believe that they showed us enough of Rose for me to live and dream on that she's going to be probably someone who would take Leia's place as a leader in what would now be the establishment of another republic. So I do look forward to that, and I do look forward to that story. In regards to storytelling and what I was saying about people interfering, Disney is notorious for being very hands-on in the movies. I mean, it makes sense. A lot of them are greenlit with large budgets. There's one anecdote that comes to mind. I am a big Antoine Fuqua fan and also a big King Arthur fan. So when he did a King Arthur movie, I was all about it. Only to find out it was supposed to be rated R, not PG-13. It was supposed to be longer, and it wasn't supposed to be a summer movie. But Disney decided at the last minute to make all these changes. Michael Eisner had a talk show, and he had Steve Martin on at one point, and he apologized to Steve Martin because he basically canceled a project Steve Martin was going to do. Steve Martin didn't even know that Michael Eisner was a part of that decision, but that was actually his decision to not go ahead with this project. So they've been notorious for being hands-on. I'm not saying they should be hands-off, particularly because they've spent a lot of money. I am saying if you're going to be hands-on in the right way. It's the same thing that I would say, if you're going to subvert expectations, give us something better than what we expect. If you can't, we at least make us appreciate what you're trying to do. And if you can't do that, then don't do it. Don't do it. If you're going to be hands-on, but let us feel that you're trying to be helpful. Let us feel that you're trying to that you're there for our benefit. It's not just profit or money making, but for our benefit. So be hands-on, please, but give us good stories. We need it. In this day and age, everything that's going on, our daily lives, we need good stories. Stories that make us feel something. Stories that inspire us. Stories that move us, that change us. Stories that help the next generation understand and progress. These are the things that stories do for us and to us. And Disney, now being one of the largest media companies in the world, is right at the center of the ability to make it happen. So please, by all means, be hands-on, but do it for the right reasons and in the right way. We will love you for it, and you will make a bunch of money on the way, if that's what your ultimate goal is. But don't let it be. Let your ultimate goal be telling the best story you can possibly. And forget about, if we cut the movie another 15 minutes, we can squeeze another movie into the theaters. No, because let me tell you right now, I'd see this movie 50 times. I'm going to probably buy the Blu-ray, but I would go back and see this movie another 2 or 3 times if there was an extended version. I loved the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I bought all the extended versions on DVD for more of it. But I want those 4-hour cuts. I do. I love them. And I sat down and watched them. Now, I understand 4 hours is a little bit much in a theater, but 3 hours, as we saw with Avengers Endgame, it's doable. But they used to do it, Ben-Hur, but they would throw 15-minute intermissions into that. I don't think we necessarily want to go back to those days, but and I feel like the money-making model there would not permit it. But 3-hour, 1-minute movies, Avengers Endgame did extraordinarily well. So it's not the running time. And squeezing another movie in for the sake of not giving the best story possible, it's not worth it. Avengers Endgame teaches you it's not worth it. So just follow your heart and give us the best story possible. I really do. I look forward to more Star Wars. I just want to check if there's any other notes I have here that I wanted to comment on. I think I covered everything. It's highly rewatchable, and in terms of storytelling, I think a lot can be garnered from it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a review of The Last Jedi. I don't know when. I'll try to do it soon. I'm going to rewatch the movie and do a review, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to look forward for, rather than focusing on just the flaws, I'm going to focus on, rather than focusing on my own feelings of it, I'm going to focus on how it can make us better storytellers. That is how I'm going to do this. That is how I'm going to bring it to you. That's what I really want to do. So that's it for now, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this full review. If you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. Please hit that notification bell for more videos to come. If you're interested in supporting me or this channel, please purchase my novel, Gideon Star, The Shields of Gideon Prime, on Amazon.com. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. And until then, keep writing.